Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's broadcast. I have successfully spent the last 6 minutes thinking whether or not I should do a recording today. But then I was like, let's do it. I'll tell you the reason why I was thinking about it. I am finding it difficult to resist the urge to check how my video is performing. And it's really optimistic, to be honest. To anyone who has seen my previous videos, and now I know for a fact there is one. I used to see, I used to upload the video and watch it myself and like it from 3 different accounts of mine just for it to have a few likes and a few views. But as I committed to the new content strategy in my previous video, what I am going to do is I'm just going to upload these videos and I'm going to treat them as SIPs, where I just upload where you just invest the money and forget about the money for a couple of years. That's what I'm going to do. But me being myself and me being extremely non-hypocritical, I obviously broke the only rule that I had set. And I went and I saw how the video was performing. To my surprise, I had a view on the video, and that single person had managed to watch it for 4.5 minutes, or I think it was 4 minutes 50 seconds. But let's give this a benefit of doubt and consider it as 4.5 minutes. So yeah, someone managed to watch my video for 4.5 minutes, and that's kind of an achievement for me. Someone managed to bear me, the real me, believe it or not, for 4.5 minutes. If that guy decides to tune in again today, or girl, then I am thankful to you. Thank you for bearing me for 4 minutes 50 seconds. Anyways, the reason I was deciding to, whether or not to record the video was because I was not able to come up with any topics. And as we have decided, I mentally come up with a topic every time I decide to record a video, and then yap about whatever comes to my mind. So today, I have decided to yap about my limited knowledge, extremely limited knowledge about motorsports, and extremely limited knowledge about Max Verstappen. And let me be clear, I have this very extensive and very comprehensive source of information known as Instagram Reels. Whatever comes in the Reels, I naturally believe it to be true, and I just decide to go with it. So whatever you're gonna hear on this is entire, or whatever you'll ever hear on this broadcast is either my personal opinion, or I have this habit, is what I think. I think it's a habit. I have this habit where I look at something and I think that okay, now I've grasped the entire situation. I've grasped what this post or this video has to say, and then I abandon it mostly halfway because I think that I've understood everything, and then the rest of the analogy, or what the rest of the post or the video might be saying is what I make up in my mind. And to be honest, it is accurate 80 to 90% of the times. But then it's not accurate. But then when it's not accurate, it is just it is just obnoxious. I say something, or I think of something that is entirely different. So that's that. So What was I saying? Yeah. Formula One. The new or the 2026 F1 season has started, and well, no one is liking it. And I have previously explained this. What is my take on this and what I think about this, and how actually the F1 people think about this, and how the F1 people, how much the F1 people care about the opinion of the people who are watching it. See, F1. Anyways, let's not go there. I was talking about the 2026 F1 season. I am for some reason feeling extremely tired today, and after just beginning to yak for about, I don't know, 6 minutes, I think 6-7 minutes, I have immediately lost the will to continue forward. But I'm still gonna prowl through because I'm a brave little soldier. F1 2026. In these regulations, the major catch, the major, if you really want an overview, then it's this initially the engine. So it comprises of the engine or the easy part, to put it in layman's term. The contribution of the EV part was 30% to the power, and the contribution of the engine part was 70%. This year it is 50-50. And in the initial races, what is happening is the cars accelerate quickly, very quickly. Ferrari is one of the quickest, is not one of the, is the quickest accelerating car from a standstill. And yeah, Ferrari is what? Ferrari is the quickest. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that cars uh, are accelerating pretty quickly, but then they lose power in the middle of a straight. So what you are seeing is the throttle still being at 100%, but the speed of the car drastically dropping because 50% of the power has just gone off. And this is what they're calling a super clipping. Now the drivers have to heavily rely on recharging their batteries and recharging the batteries and building up, So if the car goes into engine braking, then it somehow recharges the battery. And I know how it recharges the battery, but I'm not gonna say because, well, I'm really not in the mood. Anyways, so it recharges the battery that way. So what the complaint of the current people is that they have just, you know cooled it off. I mean, the cars are decelerating or reducing speed even if the driver is applying full throttle. The driver has to concentrate more on battery management rather than focusing on driving the car. It's really a sort of a game, really, if I were to put my own analogy to it. And it's really predictable. And this is one of the good points, actually. It has become really entertaining. I'm gonna be honest. In the previous race, that is in the 2020, that is in the 2025 regs itself, I used to find myself getting bored after like the first 30 minutes of the race. Most of the races, not all races, most of the races. And I am a guy who, leaves all his work and does nothing parallelly and watches F1 on his phone. So that's why I needed, not I needed, or like, okay, this is from my perspective, I needed to be somewhat engaging. And because of this, after like the first 30 minutes, I used to, get bored and nothing used to really happy. I used to get bored and nothing used to really happen, and yeah, so it was not really that engaging. But now, overtakes are crazy. crazy overtakes. In the latest Miami race, I think the lead was exchanged some 9 or 10 times. Don't quote me on this, but I think it was exchanged 9 or 10 times. But then that brings me to the other part uh, of this analogy, really. It is very predictable. Like, to me, it isn't because I'm not paying that much attention. But yeah, to most of the F1 gurus and to most people who know more than me, it is very predictable. So apparently, you can predict that. Even the commentators say that since let's say car A overtakes car B and car B uses all of his battery to overtake car B, then it is pretty, what you can say, predictable that now that car B has lost or has dropped off all its power, so it's not gonna be able to descend. And now car A, which has probably recharged its power or has a little bit of battery left, will obviously overtake car B. And then this is the most obnoxious part, or since I'm in marketing, I get it. But this is the most obnoxious part. So what F1 used to do is, for a lap or two, what it used to do is it used to show telemetry on what telemetry is basically the throttle, how much the throttle is engaged, how much the driver is accelerating, how much the driver is braking. It is showed in the form of bars, and then what is the top speed, how much battery is left, and all those things. So Formula One is to show that on the onboard. Onboard is basically the POV of the driver. So there is a camera mounted on the top of the driver, if I'm saying it correctly, and that's the POV basically. So it used to show all these things. And now that they show these onboards, let's say for driver one and driver two who are battling each other out, and then obviously initially since Formula One is showing how much is the battery percentage and how much is the throttle being applied and all those things. Let's forget about the throttle for now. Let's only focus on the battery percentage. So the information about the battery was pretty easily available, and that's exactly the reason why the racing that they were people were claiming that the racing is predictable. So the logical thing that F1 did, according to them, is that they simply stopped showing this data. That's right. And people on the internet are calling this F1 censorship, or FOM censorship, or Formula One management censorship. And the other thing that F1 is doing with regards to censorship is that, remember I told you that the information that even the throttle is 100% and still the speed of the vehicle is decreasing. What they have done now is that they stopped the minute the car begins to decelerate or is about to decelerate. They switch away from the POV and then they simply don't show the information that the car is slowing down. And obviously, the cameras are really moving with the car. I mean, the direction is the car is moving, so don't really get the perception that the car is actually slowing down. So there's that. So, I mean, honestly, my take on this, I get it, since I'm in marketing, they want to sell the product. And since they are not really providing this information openly, so that's the commentary or the people who do these watch-alongs and all these things, it has quickly changed from he has battery available and he will overtake to I wonder if he has battery available, and if he has battery available, then he will be able to overtake. So It has gone from being predictable to knowing. I mean, they obviously know what will happen, how the system works, but they don't have the data to back what they're saying. So it has kind of become less predictable. So that makes it really exciting. And now they have also, increased a couple of, they've added a few rules to the battery management, obviously. And again, the basis of this information is again a video that I've watched. And the video that I've watched says that I also didn't understand the technicality, I'm gonna be honest. But the video that I've watched says that the recharging time has increased. So the battery and the discharging time has decreased. So that is the what is technical term? I think harvesting and deployment. Harvesting is basically the battery recharging, and deployment is basically the battery deploying its power. So the deployment energy has reduced. It will still deploy the power, the maximum power, but it will deploy it slightly slowly. So what this will do is it will obviously decrease the top speed of the car will remain the same. The power will remain the same. The performance will remain the same. But what this will do is this will reduce the acceleration of the car. It will reduce the time. It will increase the time which the car takes to reach to its full speed, energy, when it will use up all of its power. So even though it is not that significant, I mean, this in Formula One terms, like 100 meters are covered in like no time. So maybe the super clipping is still there, but it will kick in slightly later on. I mean, I think 1 or 2 seconds later on. That's quite a lot, by the way, in Formula One. 1 or 2 seconds is quite a lot. So it will the power will go off after 1 or 2 seconds. And even though the cars have been made effectively slower, I mean they'll accelerate slower, but they're not really slow. So in short, it is more engaging for the driver. The power will be available for a longer amount of time, but then it will be less brutal, if that makes sense. So there's the technical part, and it is all over the place. And we see in the break which was there, in this 1 month break which was there, we saw multiple posts from the FIA and Formula One where they said that when the new regs are pretty challenging, and it was always going to be a cycle of continuous optimization and improvement and all those things. So basically they were trying to justify their own shit, and they were trying to sell basically how these regulations are the best thing that has ever happened to Formula One. And I get it. And while all of this is going on, there is because of the criticism of the fans, and obviously there are these I don't know a proper term for this, but the drivers who are obviously paid a lot to speak in the favor of Formula One management, which again I get. So these drivers are obviously saying that it is very exciting to drive and all that, and it has made the car more complicated, which somehow is more exciting. The battery management part is good and all that, and yeah, so they are putting it forward in that way. But yeah, the fans and one driver in particular, Max Verstappen, is saying exactly the opposite, which is kind of fun. Because of this, There are a few rumors floating around that F1 might be going to the screaming V8s back. The reason being, V8s are easier to manufacture than V6. They are cheaper to manufacture. They're easier to control. They are more reliable because the load distribution is pretty even and all those things. So, yeah, there are these rumors that in 2031, F1 might be going back to V8 engines and might be going back to 70-30 split, and the cars will remain as they are in 2026, obviously. Smaller. And yeah, I think I forgot to mention one point. I don't remember if I mentioned, but since it came to my mind, another change that has happened in 2026 is that the cars have become slightly smaller. I think 10 centimeters on each side, which is quite a lot. The weight has decreased by 20, 30 kg or 50 kg, something like that, minimum weight, which is quite a lot, without compromising safety that much. That brings me to the next topic. Max a million Verstappen. God damn this guy. God damn. Now, obviously, before I say anything, I would again like to give this a disclaimer that I have not done any sort of research. My only source of information is the Instagram reels. And as I've mentioned my personality, I don't go through the entire information that is being provided. I read 50% of it, and then I think that 50% will be this way, and I don't try to verify, and you get the point. I'm not gonna repeat it again. So, yeah, Max Verstappen. Overpowered and definitely, again, I'm not gonna give these disclaimers again and again. And according to me, one of the greatest drivers that I've ever come across. With that being said, I have only been exposed to F1 in the last, I think I've started watching since 2020, so I don't really know that much. Not even 2020, I think. 2021 I've started to watch, or I think 2020, I don't remember. I've started to watch since that time. And yeah, including Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen might be one of the greatest drivers the sports has ever witnessed. He just goes into any car and he just adapts. He just adapts. I think I've mentioned in one of my previous videos about Max Verstappen is that he went into a Formula Drift car. He fucked up the driving a couple of times, but then he adapted so quickly that he was able to drift the car in a fairly, professional way, which I think will require substantial amount of training. And then again, a recent incident has also happened there is this racing series in not Toyota, in Japan, I think. So I think he was driving the fastest car in that series, which is equivalent to a GT3 Cup car in 24 hours of Nova, or in the Formula in the FIA team. So I was driving that car, and the driver I think who is supposed to be the fastest. I think that driver. So he set up a time of, I think, something around 1 minute 42 seconds something, and it was raining. And the rain was getting worse, so Max Verstappen went out for his outlap, and then he set a time in, and the rain is still increasing, by the way, and that time was, I think, 0.4 or 0.5 seconds off this driver who had just set a time. And then Max Verstappen went for his second attempt, and in this second attempt the rain obviously had increased. So the rain had increased, And yet, Max Verstappen was now faster than this driver by 1.5 seconds. So the conditions are getting worse, yet Max Verstappen is getting faster. Imagine if the conditions are getting better, then what would have happened? Or even if the conditions would have remained same. But then these are ifs, buts and maybes. So let's not focus on that and let's just focus on the fact that the conditions were getting worse, the rain was increasing, and yet Max Verstappen was getting faster. Max Verstappen is also going to race in the 24 hours of Nürburgring in this particular on this particular weekend, and I think it was the qualifiers in which Max Verstappen raced recently. So qualifiers for the Nürburgring. I again don't know the format, but yeah, Max Verstappen raced there and he qualified P9, and then he cut through the field like a hot, nice and butter. And he gained almost 30 seconds of lead, but then there was some damage on the splitter of the vehicle, because of which he had to come back into the pits, and there was a 30-minute pit stop, if I'm not wrong, something around 30 minutes pit stop, which I think plummeted Max to 30th or 13th, something like that. And then there was another penalty, so now Max Verstappen is going to start from the middle of the crowd. And by the way, in the 60 or 70 years of the 24 hours of Le Mans, I think it's 60 or 70 years, the venue has never been booked to 100% of its capacity, and it has only been done for the race that is going to happen on this weekend, and the reason is obviously Max Verstappen. Imagine what sort of a person you have to be and how much sort of a control you need to have on yourself and the car and your adaptability, that if you just set foot in a particular car and you will be, and obviously he drives the fastest car, so you might argue that it will be easier for him to drive the slower cars. I mean, that's how it works. But yeah, definitely he's and it's not like, most of the drivers, there are a few drivers, I don't know the names, but there are a few drivers who were there in Formula 1 and have now gone to the lower formulas or to these GT series events, and have become pretty fast and are among the top competitors there. But that has happened because they were not competent enough to drive in Formula 1. And that's why they went in the lower series. And they are competent enough to drive there, and that's why they have become the fastest. I think there is such guy in the Ferrari LMP4 or LMH series as well. And he has won the 24 Hours of Le Mans. I don't remember his name, but yeah. I think it's Antonio Giovinazzi or something like that. So yeah, there's that guy. But Max Verstappen here is among the fiercest competitors. As a matter of fact, through his own mistake, obviously. Through his own mistake, Max Verstappen in the Miami GP main race made a mistake, because of which his car did a complete 360, and because of which he lost, I think, 10 to 12 positions. And then he came into the pit for hard tires, and came into the pit for hard tires, and then drove the race in such a way that he finished P5, I think, and he had qualified P3. P2? P2 he had qualified. Yeah, he had qualified P2. So that's still a drop. But I think Red Bull has brought hell of a lot of updates to the Miami GP race, and they have improved the car a lot. And then obviously Max Verstappen has gotten a sniff of the car being faster or better than before, and he has immediately started competing for the podium places. He had qualified P2. He made a rare mistake, which is not acceptable, even though he is the best driver. But then still the damage limitation was pretty good. So there's that. Max Verstappen is an impressive driver. Max Verstappen is a very impressive driver. I am a kind of a person who, respects or prefers being overpowered or, best at something that you do. And so me personally, driving is among one of those things. And I really, prefer having a good driving style, an ideal driving style, a proper driving style. And that's why people who drive pretty well, who have very good judgments of the vehicle that they are driving, and on top of that, people who are able to maximize the potential of the car without actually damaging the car. I admire these people a lot, because of which I have become an absolute glazer of Max Verstappen, and I think he deserves. He has managed to convert every single critique of him, every single hater of him, into either not hating him and admiring him or respecting him to absolute fanboys. After Abu Dhabi 2021, I was among those guys who used to hate Max Verstappen, and I really used to pray for him to lose each and every race. But then I came to know about his potential, I came to know about his mentality. I myself became slightly mature about the sport, and then the respect for Max Verstappen began to grow. And then there was a 2025 and the 2024 season. In the 2024 season, Max Verstappen was able to clinch his fourth world championship in spite of not having the fastest car, and then was able to lose the 2025 championship by a single point, and had also managed to cover a gap of more than 100 points, I think, 150 points, something like that. And yeah, obviously, people might argue that, Max Verstappen was able to do all of these because his competitors and the people in the fastest cars were making mistakes. But it's a pretty goddamn huge thing to not make mistakes. I mean, the example is right there in front of you. You have the fastest car. You need to be able to. I mean, Max Verstappen had one of the most, or even in the language of few subject matter experts who are claiming it to be the fastest F1 car ever made in history, faster than a W11. He had driven that car for the 2022 season as well, or the 2023 season, 2023 season, sorry, my bad. 2023 season, he won 19 out of the 23 races. Red Bull won 21 out of the 24 races. And yeah, I mean, if you have the fastest car, this is the amount of domination that you should be able to pull out. You should win each and every race. The track shouldn't be a problem for you. The condition shouldn't be a problem for you. The nothing should really be a problem for you. You should just be able to drive, and you should just be able to dominate the entire sport, and that is what Max Verstappen showed. This level of domination was never heard of before Max Verstappen, and we can't predict the future. Obviously, there might be a driver or Max Verstappen himself who wins each and every race in the Formula One calendar. But massive respect to the guy, and you know, yeah, massive respect to the guy. And to conclude today's broadcast, I would focus on the current energy crisis that is going on in India. And again, this is strictly my take on it. So as I mentioned in the last broadcast, I have, gotten a new car, and the car is diesel, obviously, and it's a Safari. And immediately after that, the energy crisis has started, and that makes me slightly perturbed. I am a guy, obviously, who is positive for a very long time, but then when I'm negative, it's just the worst. I become the most annoying guy to live with, and since I don't really express what I'm feeling with anyone, I know how annoying I can be. Or rather, only I know how annoying I can be. So yeah, I've had these, thoughts here. I think I should have gone for EVs, or rather only EVs, because the entire crisis is on fuel, any sort of fuel, petrol, diesel, CNG, anything of that sort, and that's really the crisis. So that naturally makes me think that maybe if I would have easily gotten the XCV9S for the amount which I've paid, and I kind of get similar mileage in the XCV9S, I mean in the Safari. But yeah, obviously, if I were to, you know, even though the range on a full tank is the same, but definitely I am now beginning to see the point where the cost to get that tank full in case of Safari is 5,000 rupees, and I think in case of an EV is somewhere around 1,000 rupees. Obviously, since the range, I mean, since the time, since the you have to still choose a struggle really. Are you among that guy who is willing to drive a vehicle where if it goes empty, then you'll have to take a stop. You'll have to take a stop on a proper location with proper charges, and depending on the charger on which you are, you'll have to either wait for a minimum of 4 to 6 hours, or a minimum of 45 minutes, and this might even go up to 4 to 6 hours. The infrastructure is definitely developing, I'll give it that. But still, are you willing to wait for 45 minutes on the best infrastructure while your car is being charged to the maximum, to the brim? Or are you among that person who will just simply go to a petrol station and then fill up the tank? But then now there is this energy crisis where we are being and right now India is clearly moving towards EVs as a primary source of vehicle. We are dependent upon external factors for our fuel, so I get why going to EVs is the logical option for us as a country, and because that will simply reduce our energy dependency. And I think electricity is generated locally through local resources, and since we are a country that has nice sunlight, so the solar grids also might come in handy going forward. Even though we have to still depend on making the vehicles or getting the vehicles from outside, but that's a easy problem to live with. If there are no vehicles, or if there are You know, fuel is something which you require, right? But if there is no vehicle to put fuel in, so that really doesn't become a problem. I mean, yeah, you won't be able to go from one place to another, but that's again a problem that can be lived with. Most people nowadays stay nearby to their workplaces. Most people, I mean, you can move to the, even if you don't, you can easily move to nearby your workplace. The amount of money spent will be more, but then again, that's a solvable problem. But having a vehicle, staying away, I mean, every problem can be solved if you put your mind to it, really. But yeah, definitely, we are now talking about the fuels and type of fuels, and if this energy thing continues, then I think my thinking, which is right now going in the direction of I should have bought an EV instead of a diesel vehicle, will be tightened furthermore. So that's that. So yeah, that's a really good thing, and I think that's a slightly disappointing note to stop the broadcast on. So the point that I was trying to make here was that the way things are right now, EVs are the logical option. And if things continue to be the way they are, they will become a very prominent option. And to people like me who have recently invested into diesel cars, buying another car will be a problem, obviously. Investing into another car will be a problem and will need substantial amount of money. With that being said, I would like to conclude my broadcast here. Thank you everyone, or to anyone who is tuning in or who will be tuning in, and good goodbyes.